Welcome to the kill-death ratio, where I count all my kills and all my deaths. Today, I'm playing Bramble, the Mountain King. Released in 2023 by indie developer Dimfrost Studio, we follow young Olle as he searches for his sister after she's kidnapped by a massive troll. Inspired by Nordic fables, we navigate a beautiful yet dark and frightening land, narrowly escaping grotesque monsters and making unlikely friends along the way. Can Olle do what it takes to find and rescue his sister?
And the girl was never seen again.
We jump right into the game without selecting a difficulty setting, with Olle waking up from a noisy nightmare caused by his mother's bedtime story. Unsettled from his dreams, he shambles across the room to wake his sister up, but her bed is empty and the window is open. I dump the matches onto the floor for mommy to clean up, while I take our last candle to look around the room at some creepy painting and a little bit of foreshadowing. Olle changes into a new fit at warp speed and wanders out into the nearby forest while Nola Klopp narrates. She's done a significant amount of voice work, but recently featured as the titular character in Poppy's playtime. Apparently not done with creepy stories, she explains that the forest nearby is warm and familiar during the day, but strange and unwelcoming at night. Olle asks the Pinecones if they've seen his sister, and luckily they did.
Yeah, she went over there, you fucking twerp. Now leave us alone.
As he continues forward, he finds a light in the dark and discovers a luminous stone, which leads him to his sister Lillamore's location. She sees the stone Olle is carrying and tests his accuracy by asking him to nail some pine cones with it. After smashing a few for their rudeness earlier, we toss the stone to Lillamore, who whiffs the catch first try but saves face by snatching it right before it bounces over the edge of the cliff. It's all for naught though, as they both fall over that edge and chap the hell out of their asses, sliding until we pop out into the Swedish version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. CEO of Dimfrost Fredrik Selden details the team's initial intentions was to create a game about Vikings, but noticed other games have done that recently and done it well. Instead, they set out to create a game centered around Nordic folklore that the team was familiar with growing up, as those stories are close to their hearts. We explore this new world and nom nom on an apple that nearly crushes us, until Lillamore spots a little guy she wants to take home and put in their garden. She runs after it while Olle is left getting mean mugged by Tinkerbell, before catching up to Lillamore and the gnome. He leads us to their little village, as the narrator remarks on the gnomes only ever getting visitors that want to eat them. They follow me around like Pikmin for a minute until they open the door, where I become their little errand boy. This is child labor and you deserve to be eaten. We continue our adventure, and in a shocking turn of events, a frog licks a human to get high. Lillamore does not appreciate that, but Olle certainly did and lets the Frog King know. I follow my sister until we approach a large well and peer inside it, where Olle literally stares into it for hours. Fascinated by the void, he realizes the chilling truth.
The void stares back, its empty depths reflecting the hollow emptiness that resides within him, consuming his very essence until all that remains is an abyss of despair.
It's a reminder that sometimes the void isn't just out there. It's inside us all.
He snaps back to reality to find his sister just left him there without saying a single word. A fairy gains his attention and leads him to Lillamore just in time to witness her getting bagged by a troll who quickly chases Olle as well, but narrowly misses him when he jumps into the nearby river. Either being a bro and saving his new friend or looking for another high, the Frog King carries Olle to shore and plops him down on dry land. Olle comes to and begins to look around, but is just as frightened as this little gnome by the dark forest that seems to be watching his every move. Trying to be helpful, Olle approaches a gnome caught in a trap but winds up being caught in one himself, falling into a spike trap with a freshly killed moose. I climb out and into a small tunnel leading into a room containing a troll butchering an ungodly amount of meat. Trying to be a sneaky little boy, Olle gets caught by the troll and retaliates by throwing some dookie into its eye. This earns him not one, but 2 deaths for giving him pink eye. Once he's had enough of Olle's dirty tactics, the troll clears the way and I'm able to get to safety.
Olle wanted to cry.
Yeah, me too, kid, but let's do some good by freeing these gnomes and leading them home. Seemingly not able to catch a break, we catch them all at once when the troll breaks every single bone in Olle's tiny little body when he's caught by the spotlight in this stealth sequence. But eventually we avoid the thing and earn our first kill when Olle butt bombs this dancing pine cone and ends their little ritual early. I pay the price for that transgression by being forced to navigate some toxic meat waste that contains an unknown monster in its depths. Similar to the water sequence in Amnesia: The Dark Descent, I need to pull myself up and out of the waste to be out of danger and use a trapped gnome as bait for my second kill. Olle quickly finds out karma is a hell of a thing and becomes course number 2 for the meat beast. I reload and sacrifice the gnome again before escaping that nightmare and finding myself right back in the butcher's room climbing on some moldy meat. With a freshly cleaned but itchy eye, the butcher spots Olle shimmying around and tosses him in a cage, but Olle is a wily sort and pushes it over the edge of the wall. He tumbles down into the forest, breaking free of his prison, where we find more pinecone folk bullying this other fella. I pick up some rocks and destroy 7 of them, uncertain if I'm actually killing them but counting them anyway because fuck them pinecones. Here I meet Lamus, a creature inspired by a John Bauer painting that quickly becomes friends with Olle and helps him on his way. Down the path a little ways we find the glowing rock again called the Spark of Courage. Olle is going to need that courage because he forgot to pay the troll toll and is about to go the way of Carla Jaeger until the spark gives off blinding light like every single pickup truck riding my ass on the highway. Olle seemingly blacks out for hours on end as it's now daylight and the troll has turned to stone, saving him from a brutal death. It's a good thing he survived that too, otherwise he'd never experience this scenic view while the Swedish artist Björn sings beautifully over our casual strolling. So much of the music in this game is fantastic, and we have Martin Wave and Dan Wakefield to credit for that. They do a terrific job of conveying certain emotions to match what's going on in the game, and I'll be adding this soundtrack to my Spotify playlist of my favorite game music. I find a hedgehog, looking less blue and definitely a lot slower than what I expected, but I tell him there are rings on the other side of the water, so I can hitch a ride over there. After another interaction with Lamus looking real pretty, Olle hears some distant music and does the opposite of a safety dance. He slides under a tree into the dark underground, where I tack on another couple deaths due to some jumping failures. On our way out, we get some warning signs of what's to come, because right outside the music takes control of Olle again, who certainly can't dance when he wants to, and falls onto a lily pad, catching the attention of the musician in the background. Feeling mad unsettled, I skip along the lilies, just waiting for the jump scare. Olle outruns the creature, but now needs to endure the dangers of its music, which eventually leads to another death. Once we get to safety, we locate a book detailing the lore of the Necken. In Nordic folklore, the Necken's story can change depending on where one grew up, but in this game, Necken was a musician who was bullied so severely he began playing forbidden tunes that forced people to dance uncontrollably until they died, including the woman he loved. He left the village in sorrow and took up residence at the lake nearby, luring people to their death using his violin. After that lore dumpy, Olle gets surprised by the monster again and falls into the river, getting snatched up right as the two of them go over. By this point, Ole's brain is going to be mush with how many times he's blacked out, but that's a future problem, and his current problem took care of itself when its new chiropractic technique failed him. Feeling dazed, we find ourselves in a vision. Back at the area, we found Lillemor that's now covered in bramble. A blinding light kills it, and we cut back to Olle, falling into the lap of a golden-haired girl named Tuva, who picks up the spark and holds it close to her chest. Whatever she did allows Olle to clear Bramble off the path, so we can wave at our boy Lamus. After another stealth section, we climb the statue of King Niels, once a peaceful ruler who now embodies the darkness and bramble that have overtaken the land that nearly kills Olle before Lamus rescues him. However, Olle may regret continuing on, as what comes next is pretty frickin' dark and depressing. We spot warning signs pleading desperate mothers to turn back with their infants and not carry out the horrific acts they're thinking about doing. Olle isn't a mother though, so he figured he'd be good to go on, where we very quickly leave this creepy woman to hang out on her own. I enter the swamp containing a large crowd judging you hard for not liking and subscribing, so best appease the little souls to ease their crying. Otherwise, Olle will take his newfound experience in witchcraft out on you. After removing the enchantment from the door, we enter the next room containing a book encouraging the sacrifice of babies, with a woman upstairs showing her baby how to tie a knot. Always best to teach 'em early, I say. Olle chases after her with a sense of urgency, as all signs point to that baby not surviving the night. But as the narrator explains,
He did not know that someone else wanted to hold him back. A midwife who wanted more dark souls to take care of.
there's no need though, because I end Olle's journey myself with a dumb jump right into the swamp. When I reload, I board a raft and pull myself towards the Jesus Christ poser blocking my way, and use the spark to knock her loose. But then all light goes out and our ears are assaulted by the most annoying noise in the world. This begins the boss fight against Kerhaxen, a midwife accused of witchcraft that was burned alongside her orphanage, who now spends her time protecting the children of the swamp. Olle said that's old shit though, and blasts her repeatedly with a spark to make her kill number 11 and pave the way to another bramble-laden path we need to clear up. We finally catch up to the woman and the baby, who puts a spell on the house preventing Olle from following. But we're resourceful. So resourceful in fact that we die! I end up climbing over the shack, but as soon as we jump down, the bramble chases us until we get to the water, where more dark souls greet us. Olle climbs out of the swamp to find a large blurry blob hanging out near the tree, and another smaller blob submerged in a puddle. Devastated for being too late, Olle gives the baby a proper funeral so it doesn't join the rest of the souls in the swamp. Soon afterwards, another creature is spotted up ahead, the friendly Lektuba, which is said to be nearly as old as the world itself. It guides Olle to a library where we read the story of King Niels and Queen Magdalena, who passed away after giving birth to their only child Ulrich. King Niels was saddened by his love's death and considered Ulrich the only light in his life until he fell ill, with nothing seeming to help. He was told of a flower which is used to cure any illness, and in desperation he began a violent campaign, killing many in search of the flower, but never finding it. Olle thanks Lektuba for depressing him even more, and leaves the library when suddenly he spots Lilimor up ahead. We run after her until we hit a clearing in the woods, and it's made obvious we've been tricked. The shapeshifter Skogstreat makes its presence known by killing Olle twice to match my number of kills. Her weak point is protected by magic being sourced from the men strung up to the trees surrounding her, forcing Olle to zap them with the spark to weaken her magic. And turns out these poor fellas are actually still alive, confirmed in a book we find later when it explains their still beating hearts are the source of the Skogstreat's power. After stopping the hearts of 5 men, she's weakened, to watch as she taunts him by killing a mirage of Lilimor. This is her biggest fuck up, because Olle doesn't stand for that. This fight has 3 phases altogether, and due to my 2 deaths, I gain a total of 21 kills, eliminating her source of power so Olle can teach her a lesson on what Insano mode looks like. Disturbed by his own actions, Olle kinda shambles his way along through a smoldering forest containing a giant blurry tree. Because of the Skogstreat, things kinda went cattywampus in this village, with dark-haired women being executed as suspected witches and the forest getting razed to try and kill the thing, luring men to their death, then subsequently getting hit by the bubonic plague and zombies to cap everything off. Those same zombies wind up adding another 2 deaths to my total before I take a break to read a woman's diary detailing the end of her life. There's a single detail that stands out: a woman with a rake seemingly unleashing the plague on people when she passed by their homes at night, who can be easily missed while navigating the village. Finally, as we're leaving, we wander into the cemetery, waking the dead and shitting our britches as we sprint as fast as we can away from them until they fall into the river below. With that behind us, we face Snake Eater's most challenging boss until an eclipse darkens the land and things get real fucking trippy. We find a boat and row towards King Niels Mountain, when suddenly a figure appears behind Olle and ushers him into a black void. This is Pesta, a word I use for pesto pasta, but what Nordic folk use to refer to the pandemic. She has various forms of attack, sneezing so hard she obliterates Olle with ease, and another that gets me eaten. The 3rd time around, I make it through her trials and end her bull stuff with the spark. We approach the mountain and enter the halls of the Mountain King, where another library awaits with more details of King Niels' descent into madness. He finally found a witch that could cure his son, but because of his campaign, he made many enemies. His son Ulrich was finally healed, however his good health was short-lived when the king found him murdered the following morning. This was the final straw for the once great king, who rampaged through his kingdom, covering it in bramble. The witch saw what was happening, and encased the king within this mountain, and imprisoned him in the bramble, destined to stay in place and be fed by trolls as punishment. That's some crazy shit, but Olle's clothes stink to high heaven, so we swap those out and search the castle until we find the Mountain King's table. Olle finds the sack containing Lilimor, but before he can open it, a troll enters and snatches it away. While hiding, Olle can do nothing but watch as the troll empties the contents of the sack into the king's mouth, locking eyes with Lilimor as she drops down his gullet. Unsatisfied with that meager helping, he stabs the troll with his fork and eats him too, but something caught his eye and he bats Olle's cover off the table to begin our fight, while in the Hall of the Mountain King begins to play. There's a couple phases to the fight that require Olle to dodge while using the open windows to attack the bramble attached to the king's shoulders. He succeeds in killing me thrice before I chip away enough at the bramble so that he regains some of his old self and sees a young boy before him that looks like his deceased son. He pushes the table back, revealing the largest flower yet, looking like a bloodborne boss. He stabs it with a sword to free himself from the bramble's control for good. I climb his sword and latch onto his beard as he stands up to place his chandelier crown atop his head once more. Dude's beard hasn't been washed in ages though and is crazy greasy, making Olle lose his grip. He's not about to let Lilimor sit in his belly and tosses the spark into his mouth as they both fall to their death. Lilimor uses the spark to cut her way out of the Titan-sized King Kratos style and rushes to Olle's lifeless body. However, Tuva also imbued the spark with the power to revive. Ecstatic that her brother returned to life, Lilimor begins to carry him out of the crumbling castle and receives help from our boy Lamus. We cut back to the kids at home, with Lilimor waking up from a nightmare, looking for her brother's comfort, but instead finds an empty bed and a jump scare! We flip to the title card and roll the credits of this fantastical tale and transition into the final numbers. I finished Bramble the Mountain King with a total of 35 kills, overtaking The Last of Us Left Behind as the lowest kill count to date, with dudes that were barely even alive making up the majority of those kills. I ended up dying a total of 18 times, making this easily my worst kill-death ratio yet at 1.94. I completed the game in just over 4.5 hours, which gives us a kill on average every 7.8 minutes and a death every 15.17 minutes. Bramble the Mountain King is a fantastic little game that deserves to be talked about alongside heavyweights of its genre like Little Nightmares, Limbo, and Inside. I'll be interested to see what Dimfrost cooks up next regardless of what they decide to create. Next up is God of War Ascension, and I apologize to those patiently waiting for that one. We'll finally see how many kills Kratos tallies up altogether. Thanks as always for watching. I'm King Deschain, signing off for now.